Welcome back to RBD Block Challenge. I'm Cindy Cloward, and today we are working on block number 3. It's called Roses Among the Thorns, and it's designed by Jennifer Long. Jennifer Long is given this beautiful block that's a little bit more of a challenge. She likes to give us a challenge, but we're up for the challenge. I'm going to take you through step by step on how to create this block. Today I'm working with our confetti cottons, but this is what our batiks look like. A little more pink on this version. And we are going to get started on the roses among the thorns. You'll notice there is a thorn along this stem. So let's get started. Like always, you need to download the pattern from the Riley Blake Designs website. Block number 3, Roses Among the Thorns. And this year you'll notice we've got two-sided instructions. We've got detailed instructions for you this year. So the first thing it has you do is take your K square and your A square. So we're going to take our A square and then our K squares. And if you don't have a Seam So Easy guide, you're going to need to mark each one of these K squares from corner to corner, and that is going to be your sew line. And they're all made the same way. You're going to make 4 of these. Oh, we've got another one of these. So I'm going to line them up, all 4. And just pay attention where that marking, I want to have an extra square right here. So I'm going to put that down because we only need 4. And we are going to sew corner to corner on that marked line or using your Seam So Easy guide. Okay, let's take it back to our cutting station. Or I could clip my threads on my bee cutter, but I'm stitching at 2 and 2.25. I like a little tighter stitch. And then just make sure they're facing all the same way. And I'm happy with that. So now we're going to take our 1/4 inch plus ruler and trim down to a 1/4 inch from the seam. Right, we'll clean that up. Okay, really quickly, we're just going to open those up. Sometimes I press them all together. And they should all still measure 2 1/4. So all you're adding is this corner unit, so they still should be all 2 1/4, but you can square them up to make sure they're accurate. Okay, the next thing on the instructions is to take our B rectangles and our D squares. Now to save a little time, we're going to make these flying geese units. This is what we're going to create. We're going to create the flying geese unit and then add this rectangle to the bottom. So I'm just going to take you through how to create one flying geese unit. And again, if you don't have a 1/4 inch or if you don't have a Seam So Easy guide, mark your unit corner to corner. And you're going to sew on this side. We'll bring it back here and sew our other square on the top. So right just slightly to the side, to the outside of your marked line or on your Seam So Easy guide. You bring it back here. Again, you're going to chain piece all 4 flying geese units, but we're just doing one at a time. You can finger press, but I recommend taking it to your pressing station, giving it a good press open. So there's one side. Again, you're going to mark this corner to corner. It's going to be opposite. And you're going to go sew from here to here. That will be your sew line. I'm going to use my Seam So Easy guide this time. Line up that center mark with the bottom center here. trim down. And if you've been a long-time quilter, you know how to make these flying geese. Okay, that's what we want to see. They should measure 3.5 inches on the side and 2 from top to bottom. And sometimes I just check them and make sure I've got that nice 1/4 inch below the seam. So when you can keep that seam when you sew that into your other unit. So we're going to take our E rectangles, because again, we're creating this unit right there, and we'll just put that on the top. And then my tip for you is always flip over, and when you're sewing flying geese, I like to see that I'm not sewing into my point and cutting off that point. So I like to flip it over. And this block. Okay, we're going to open that up. Okay, so we've pressed this unit, and this is what we want to see. We want to see that tip rested right on that lower rectangle. And so we'll put it with the other 3 units, and we'll put those to the side. And the next thing we need to do is half square triangles. Now I have one of my A blocks that I didn't use previously, so these are all extra, so I'm going to put those away. So I've got my A square and I need a C square, and we are going to make 2 at a time method of half square triangles. Again, you're going to need to mark corner to corner, and that's not going to be your stitch line, that's going to be your guide, and you're going to stitch on each side of that line to make your half square triangles. You're going to flip over your pattern, and I'm going to do another half square triangle at the same time so I can chain piece. I'm going to take my C square and my F square. Again, you're going to need to make mark corner to corner to make your guide, and you're going to sew on each side of that line. So I'm going to take these to my sewing machine, and I'm going to line that up with my Seam Sew Easy guide right on the side of my 1/4 inch foot, and then I'm going to line it up down below on that 1/4 inch seam. Maybe just slightly less. There we go. Flip it over and sew down the other side. All right, let's get our little clips here. Now, if you've marked that center line, that is going to be your guide to trim down the middle, or cut down the middle. I'm going to get my rotating mat, and we are going to make our half square triangles. So this is the 1/4 inch plus ruler, comes in so handy to make half square triangles and cut off those dog ears. So I'm going to line up my stitches with that blue line right there, and then line the top so I can trim my dog ears off at the same time on one side. So I'm going to trim off. Rotate it just a little bit. When you're trimming your dog ears, make sure you are not cutting into your stitches. And if you line this up, this line here and that line there, you shouldn't. I give you this guide so you don't cut off anything you don't need to. I'll flip that over. Now next we're going to go to our pressing station, and on that darker pink color, that really rosy color, we're going to press to the dark side, and then that second half square triangle we are going to press to the light side. So these two we're pressing to the dark side, because we want to be able to nest our seams. So I'll press that there. There we go. And now we're going to press to the light side on these ones. Okay, let's bring this back, and we're going to trim these to 2-inch square. And since this is 2.5, I'm going to use this, which I can pull it into the corner and do an exact 2-inch. So this is how I do it. I make sure that corner's lined up and I pull it back so it's measuring 2 inches, and then I'm going to trim down, since we've already done our dog ears, on 2 sides. So we have a perfect 2-inch half square triangle. Again, that's a little ski-wampus on that side. So make sure you've got a right angle on 2 of the sides, otherwise you're going to have to make another adjustment. So we've got those there. So let's clean up our cutting station. And then I'm going to grab this little design board, and let's assemble the center of our quilt block now. So we're going to take our squared up 2-inch half square triangles and follow the pattern and make sure it's laid out accurately. So the red's going to be on the top, the darker pink's going to be there, then it's kind of opposite. It's easy to get this mixed up. Okay, I think that is right. It does kind of make a pinwheel right there. And since we pressed to the light side and pressed to the dark side, when we flip these over, they should nest, and they do. So that's always a good feeling. So I'm gonna put a pin there and a pin there, so we know we're gonna sew down this direction. And I'm gonna flip over there, a pin here, and here, and let's take it to the machine and sew. Okay, let's open it up, and we do just want to see that point. It looks good. That's coming to a point. So I don't cut the threads in between. And we just make sure they're going the right direction. Again, yeah, that looks great. We're going to nest our seams. I do throw a pin in the center there and sew that center seam. Okay, let's take it to our pressing station and see how all those points come together. Looks great. And let's just give it a nice little press there. Open it up and press there. Okay, our center section is finished. There is a little bulk in there, so if you want to kind of open up those seams and flip them opposite, you can do that. See how that lays opposite, and you got this little patchwork in the center. That's kind of nice to make it a little flatter there in the center. There we go. Okay, so now our next step is to sew the center section before we add the outside. So we can put this in the center like that. And we can grab our other units. So we've got that. We got those flying geese flying in the center, so make sure they're going the right direction. And then we've got the blue corners on the outside, which creates this flower, this little circular flower. So I'm going to flip those over, and we're going to sew down this side right here. So let's take it to the machine and sew. Okay, let's take it back to this design board, open it up. I'm going to flip those over. Again, there's so many seams. I am using a scant 1/4 inch. I'm going to sew down this side, so I changed the direction of the board. And since I'm not cutting my threads in between, it's a little more bulk to take over to my machine. I always put a pin on the top right here. Okay, let's take it to the machine and sew. All right, let's take it back, see how it's coming together. We'll flip that over here. And just notice where your seams want to lie. They want to go this direction, so I'm going to nest my seams opposite. Those just want to flop in there. So I'm going to nest that seam there. Those little intersections, make sure those seams are nesting. It is kind of like a puzzle for me. I like to nest my seams. I don't open up my seams. If you like to open up your seams, feel free to do that. But I like to click my seams into place, and it's kind of fun to make this little puzzle come together. And this really does come together really nicely if you're pressing the correct way. Again, I'm going to finger press those in, and those are flopping out. And so I'm going to finger press those going out right there. Just nest those seams with our RBD bird pins, and I love how it comes together. See, this block looks like it's hard, but step by step, it's pretty easy. Okay, you can pin more if you feel the need, but I'm just gonna make sure those line up. If one's a little shorter than the other, just give it a little tug when you're sewing your units together, and it should line up pretty well. All right, let's take it to our pressing station. Open up, take a look. This is what we want to see, all those points coming together. It's looking great. I'm going to press those that direction before I open it up. And again, make sure they're, hold for a minute. Take a long moment to press that open. Okay, here's our beautiful center unit. Now it's time to assemble our thorn stem. So we're going to grab our H. Might as well grab them all. N, M, and G are going to be sewn together, and then our L. So that's going to line up like this, and we just have to make one half square triangle. Now you mark it corner to corner, and that is going to be your sew line. We're not making two, just mark it corner to corner, or just use your Seam Sew Easy guide, and let's make that little unit. We're going to trim it down. Oh, let's put that over there. We're going to trim that down to 1/4 inch on one side. And I'm going to just finger press it, open it, and it should measure 1.5 inches. So just make sure that is accurate, and it looks good. So this is our thorn, so it needs to be flipped this direction, and then we're going to sew the N on top, the L on bottom, and then the H to the side. So let's just take it to our sewing machine and do just that. Okay, let's take it over to our pressing station. Give it a good press. All right, let that cool down just a little bit. So we got the center unit, which looks just like that center unit, and we need to add these two sides. So I'm going to put that, well, I'll just put that to the side. So we're going to take our J piece, and we're going to cut it right down the middle, right there, corner to corner, diagonally. And then we're going to sew this side on that direction and that side on. I'm going to put that there, and then we'll take it to the machine and sew. If you want to throw in a pin, you can. What's important is you have this right angle all lined up, and you're going to start stitching from here and go down to the end. Okay, let's take it to our pressing station. Give it a good press, open it up, and then we can press from this side. Okay, this unit is finished. We're ready to move to our last step. We take these two eye squares, and we are going to cut them in half. Now I'm going to clean up this little station right here. Now you're only going to need 3 of these halves, so the one is just going to be extra. So let's cut that in half. And again, we're only need to use 3, so we'll put this extra to the side. Let's start laying out our block. Okay, so you're going to have this one side. This is what it's going to look like. And now the next thing you need to do is, so that's what our block's going to look like, and we've got to sew the sides on. So just mark the center of each side. You can fold it and fold it again. That needs to be marked. You can press it or finger press it, but it's important to mark the center because that's what you're going to line up. Oh, that's not accurate. There you go. That's all lined up. And then for these units here, these little triangles, you're going to need to mark the center of those as well, because you're going to line them up. That's how we're going to sew them and line them up. And again, I recommend doing a scant seam allowance on these. And make sure when you're sewing, you're not stretching your fabric. So don't just assume that's the center. Make sure you're finding the center, which is about a 1/4 inch from the seam. So that's going to be super important. Don't skip this step. So there's my center right there. And I'm going to, again, mark that because it's not showing up. And we're going to flip that over. So don't skip that step. Don't try and eyeball that. Make sure that's super accurate. I'm going to throw a few more pins on there because I have some bulk and some seams. And I'm going to pin both sides. So you work opposite sides when you are creating a block like this. So we're going to line that up to that marked. And you can check yourself because you should have about the same amount of fabric off the edge. These points are going to be slightly off the edge. And they look like they're even, so, you know, that's another check. A check and balance. Okay, that needs to flip that direction. Again, I'm going to pin that there. So finally, we're ready to sew these two sides. And you can start on the far edge, even though you don't have 2 pieces of fabric, you can start stitching there. All right, we've got those 2 sides sewn. Let's take it to our pressing station and flip that up. There we go. So this is how it should look like at that stage. We have 2 sides to pin on again. All right, sides together. And again, a good little check is that you've got a little extra on both sides, the same amount on both sides. We're kind of putting this on point, so this is how it comes together. That. And again, let's make sure we're doing a scant 1/4 inch. We'll take it to our pressing station. Our last big press. Okay, look at this block on point. Now it's time to square it up. I'm going to use my large rotating mat for this. I think that's going to be helpful. And I am going to line up this corner right here first. And then I'm going to just line everything up. So we've got our center, and anything on the outside of that, we're going to give a trim, including all these little dog ears. So let me line that up right there. Kind of pulling it into this corner so I have a more generous amount on one side, so we won't have to trim as much. We'll see. Okay, here we go. Those dog ears are going, and we have a little bit more over here. I'll pull that just slightly. Okay, that's the last of our trimming. Oh, those dog ears need another little cut. They're more like rabbit ears on those sides, right? Okay, I think we're finished. Take a look at that. This was a little bit more of a challenge, but we're up for the challenge, right? We're sewing together, we're having fun. So congratulations if you finished this. Roses Among Thorns. It's a little more complicated, but I love the finish of this. Jennifer Long's gonna be creating her own flowers, Roses Among the Thorns, and I can't wait to see what she creates. So join us next time for block number 4, Twirl, and it's by Fran Gulick.